So I've got to start this episode of the Ups and Downs with a little bit of an apology. Unshockingly, I am doing a little bit of traveling again, and I am recording from a hotel room. I thought that I would get myself a nice little green screen, little travel one, and then Chris would just be able to do the editing as normal. It turns out that I might not have done the best job in the world of lighting it, arranging it, setting it up, or really doing anything that didn't make his life incredibly difficult. So, Chris, I don't actively try and make your life more difficult. I just think that passively I've got quite good at it. So that is why today I'm in the amorphous white blob of There's a Spare Wall. Shall we get into the actual episode? We're already on episode 2 of Lower Decks season 4. I have no bones, yet I must flee. Delighted to say that the 2 episodes that have dropped this week for Lower Decks are both bloody strong ones. We've already, of course, covered the first one, Tuvix, hilarious, in our previous video, so we hope you've enjoyed that one, and make sure, even if this one pops up first because of algorithm things, go and watch that one first, because it sets up all of the jokes in this one. And also it's the first episode. So this one sees Mariner working closely with Ransom. You've got Rutherford running around like a headless chicken, Boimler digging through some boxes of stuff for some cool Easter eggs, and you've got one of the cutest Pokemon ever. Moopsie. But before any of that, we're going to start with our mystery of the season. At the end of last week, we had that mystery ship. I say last week, it's just absolutely muscle memory at this point. At the end of the last episode, that mysterious ship arrived and destroyed that Klingon bird of prey. This time, we open with the discovery of this ship, and it actually takes on a Romulan warbird. Now, yes, that is a Romulan warbird. This is sort of jumping ahead to the station observations, but this was the warbird as it was originally envisaged by designer Andrew Probert. It was so cool to see this on screen because, unfortunately, before things went the way they did, we were going to get an Eagle Moss model of this, but it just hadn't gone into production yet. So we open up with this very TNG, well, very original TNG style warbird with TNG style Romulans who are all, oh my god, they are scheming, they're plotting, they're conspiracying, or conspiring, which would be the actual word. And, they've just chopped up a Riemann. Everything about this is both really grim and really funny, and it is absolutely an up for this week's episode. It was great to see this style of Romulan design back as well. So even though the logo behind them is from later series Romulans, what the Romulans we see on screen are very, late 80s, early 90s. There is one thing though in this scene, that when the Romulan sub-commander is standing there and he goes, "How did they detect us?" Down. Literally the first thing we see the warbird doing is decloaking. It goes badly for the Romulans, they get destroyed, and we get another panning shot of a logo. So we go straight into the opening credits after this. So that's obviously going to be our season-long arc as to what the heck this thing is and why is it destroying these random ships. And is it something that's going to affect Shax? Because as the opening credits end, Shax looks in Mariner's eyes and says, "Just let me die." And we're like, oh god, again? But no, it's Shax and Ransom stretching a la Crusher and Troy, just taken up. I mean, just like this, what even is this show at this point? They are just having so much fun. In a really sweet way as well, you get to see the banter between these people who are clearly co-workers. Like, they talk about Shax's relationship with T'Ana, and Shax is talking about how sometimes she's all over him and other times, she won't come out from under the bed, to which Ransom answers, "Did you do the thing where you scratch the blanket and go, pss, 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 pss? Of course I tried that." Up. In traditional Lower Deck style, Mariner overhears them talking and overhears Ransom saying Mariner won't be his problem for that much longer. Mariner's story this week, I'm really glad we got it as early in the season as we did. So at the end of the last episode, we see Mariner getting a promotion to Lieutenant Junior grade. So as it stands right now, everyone bar Rutherford got a promotion up to Lieutenant Junior grade. And Mariner, as we know, doesn't really like being promoted. She's been promoted up, she's been demoted down again. We're told in the course of the episode it's about 8 times. And so she hears Ransom saying she won't be my problem for that much longer. And of course, the first thing that she assumes is that, here we go again. I'm going to get demoted again. So she says, right, I'm not going to wait for it. I'm going to go out of my way to make this happen. I will earn this demotion, she says. Now, this is actually, it's a super interesting story because even a couple of seasons ago, I probably would have put this in the down counter, right? And I probably would have just been like, oh, okay, right. So we've got no growth whatsoever. This is, you know, season 1 Mariner. She's just here to cause trouble. There we go. And yet, skip to the end of her story as to why there isn't it down. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to park Mariner there for a second, and I'm just going to look over at Rutherford and Tendi. This is sort of the other big plot of the episode. You have Boimler trying to find the best place to live, which is a hilarious C plot. So I will get to that. But our main B plot is Rutherford and Tendi, and basically Rutherford's goal to get himself promoted in the course of the day. There's a funny moment where he says, you know, oh, don't worry, I'll get promoted in the course of the day. I'll be fine. And both Boimler and Tendi are just like, Rutherford, this can take years, you know? And he's like, oh no, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. And we find out later why he thinks it's going to be so fine. But what we do is we just follow him throughout the episode doing his absolute best to impress Billups. Now, Billups is like the nicest guy on the ship, so you think this would be easy, right? Mariner walks away, Tendi and Boimler walk away, Rutherford walks away, and we actually get a sweet closing shot where the lights come down on those lower decks bunks, and I have to give that an up, because that was a little moment that I felt I was really glad that they gave it that lingering shot, because that's where we've spent the most 3 seasons so far. So that was actually really lovely. Continuing on just with this B plot for a second, I'm just going to call it Rutherford's rivalry. And we have this new ensign, Livik, who is just, he's like one step ahead of Rutherford for the entire episode. And just, you know, every time something happens, Rutherford just goes, Livik. And it just keeps happening. And, you know, it is a repeated joke 3 times, and I still found it funny each time. Rutherford's rivalry, you take an up from me, okay? Because I really, really, really just enjoyed it, because Rutherford, who is a genius at what he does, is being pushed to his limits by this new guy. In a way, it's really good for the Cerritos, because they're just getting all of these improvements without even really trying. You know, Rutherford increases the output of the nacelles by 0.5%, but Livik did it by 0.6%, and then we cross over. Boimler has been assigned quarters, which are, you know, they're much bigger than what he was used to, but the window, unfortunately, overlooks the bussard collectors. And Boimler's like, oh god, okay, what'll we do, And he digs through his box of stuff and pulls out a Medusan visor from in there, is there in truth no beauty? And he wears the visor and he's like, this is fine. But then that 0.6 improvement goes in and it blinds him once again. And I enjoyed watching him suffer possibly too much. Sticking then with Boimler for a few minutes, he then gets assigned another set of quarters. Shax helps him move in, which is really nice of him, as he says, anything for you, baby bear, which is just lovely. And what Boimler doesn't see is, just as they're walking into that room, Freeman is in the room just before theirs, walking in, and oh look, it's a holodeck. And then Shax walks out of this and sees T'Ana standing there in full Robin Hood gear, holding him a pair of pants, saying, are you ready to get disgusting? To which Shax answers, has that ever stopped you before? And in they go. And then there's Boimler, and he's getting ready, and he's putting his stuff out, and why on earth would you not soundproof a holodeck? Why? His room is in between 2 holodecks on the Cerritos. Why would you not soundproof these rooms? So you've got clear as day through the wall T'Ana beating 7 levels of tar out of Robin Hood and his merry men, while on the other side you've got Captain Freeman delivering a scat improv version of her inaugural address as the head of Starfleet. And Boimler is just like, I just can't catch a break on this ship, can I? And again, we're back to watching Boimler suffer, and I love it. Taken up. There is one line that really had me laughing there, which is just Shax through the wall going, can't we ever just use the program as intended? Taken up. Meanwhile, over on this station, this menagerie, if you will, Mariner has been assigned to help Commander Ransom, or Jack as she calls him, and Ensign Gary in the removal of 2 humans from an alien menagerie. It goes about as well as you would expect, but also poor Ensign Gary. With a name like that, you'd expect him to be dead before the end of the opening credits, and yet he does largely well, except when Mariner decides that instead of taking the shuttle slowly into the station, she rams it in for all it's worth, and down, because I didn't see her turning off the inertial dampers, but poor old Ensign Gary does a bit of a barrel roll in the back. That seems just a bit cruel, really. We are introduced then to Narj, who is a sort of banana-ish looking person, definitely a botanical type creature, who is the curator of this menagerie. We see lots and lots of little Easter eggs in there, so bear with me for cetacean observations. I'm going to say this right now. I did my best. There's a lot in this, but Narj is very open, he's very accommodating, and he's a bit affronted when Mariner starts saying like, oh, do you just stick everything that you ever liked into imprisonment? And he's like, well, yes. Well, you're at one of the best menageries, one of the top 1,000 menageries in the quadrant, which, you know, Ensign Gary and Commander Ransom are a bit like, that's great for you, and Mariner's a bit less on board. They find the 2 humans and they're like, oh, okay, right, well, we'll sign them out and we'll get them away. And, you know, then Mariner's like, she's really pushing Narj's buttons here. You know, she's like, come on, you're doing all this for profit. You're doing all this for profit. And, you know, Narj is like, no, my real money spinners are those Pythian swamp gobblers over there. They look over and the cute as Eddie, the little Moopsie, is just standing there. And he goes, Moopsie! And it's so cute, and it's just a little Pokemon. And Narj shows a look of terror on his face like nothing I have ever seen. Because as Narj screams, as they are like, get us the heck out of here, everything in that menagerie is incredibly dangerous. And when you look at some of the other things on display, yep, that tracks. Especially when you see the Moopsie goes down through a grate, comes up in the Pythian swamp gobbler's space, and drinks their bones. Their bones, folks. It drinks their bones. And they run and they run and they run, and they get into what seems to be this little antechamber that they're able to close the door and block away the incredibly cute yet deadly Moopsie from coming after them. And Ransom turns on Mariner and quite understandably says, Beckett, what the hell? Like, you clearly let that out. And Mariner's like, no, I didn't do that. And Ransom initially is having none of it. And she goes, well, basically, this proves your theory that you'll be able to demote me soon. This is why I held off in the beginning from adding that to the down counter, because this is Mariner, who is open to hearing sense. So my up is that Mariner doesn't stay with this defiant, insubordinate nature. What she does is she allows Ransom to speak sense and then turns around and says, oh my God, you're right. I have been sabotaging myself this whole time. And I nearly cheered when I saw it. We're season 4, okay? It would be a little bit unforgivable, in my opinion, to have Mariner going again, oh, I'm just going to be insubordinate for the sake of insubordination. It's not. It's a genuine misunderstanding. And as Ransom says, she has had so many less than amazing commanding officers before this that they just never stuck it out with her. And then she then reacted to that by acting out and getting reassigned, usually via demotion. Okay, first of all, my Latinum up of the week is Mariner's growth. I've been waiting for this for quite a while, and Mariner has gotten better and better and better, so that a moment like this hits the way it should. So that was the first, my Latinum up for the week, Mariner's growth. And a quick succession, another up is Ransom. He's brilliant. He is exactly what you would want a commanding officer to be here, or at least superior officer in charge of the mission. He listens to Mariner when she says, look, I actually didn't let the Moopsie out. And he goes, okay, I believe you. And he's also able to brainstorm and come up with a way of saving the team. It's a bit too late for poor old Narj, by the way, who, like, yeah, turns out there was bones in that botanical life form. Ugh. Anyway, right, so the Moopsie drinks him, and yeah, you've got poor old Ensign Gary is a bit like, this is so not what I signed up for, but is doing very well compared to most other red shirts. What they do, Mariner, Ransom, and Gary manage to get out of this chamber and lock the Moopsie in, and they're all congratulating themselves, and then they realized, It's the main power center for the entire station. Yep, they've just locked this homicidal yet cute creature in where all the big buttons go. Flip. Back aboard the Cerritos, Rutherford is absolutely run ragged at this point. He is tired, he is worn out, he is trying to impress Billups so much to the point where he keeps meeting Boimler along the way, at one point sliding into the Jeffries tubes where Boimler has moved in, where he doesn't have to listen to people in the holodeck and doesn't have to see the light of the nacelles, and is able to, unfortunately, inform Rutherford that actually this other ensign just went through just a few minutes ago doing the exact same thing Rutherford was doing. And we get another Livik. It's so dumb, but I'm loving it. And then, you know, we get to this moment of Rutherford grabbing Tendy's arm and being like, I've done it. It took an incredible amount of work, but I've managed to do this thing that will, you know, that Billups will love. And so runs inside and goes, Commander Billups, I've got a thing. And Billups says, oh, I'm sure whatever you did is great, but actually we're just going to do it after the pip ceremony, okay? Down. Now that is my down for the week. Billups is so dismissive of what is quite clearly going on around him this week that I thought, oh no, oh Andy, oh you've really misread this one. So yeah, so Billups, you're taking it down this week. No matter how nice you are, by ignoring Rutherford the way that you did, that was just, yeah. And then also, you know, kind of like, oh, we're gonna shower praise on Livik for a little while and give him a promotion, and yeah. So that's a down there. Tendy, taken up Lieutenant Junior Grade Tendy, who gives her first order this week to basically tell Rutherford to chill out. And it's so refreshing to see because he's overthought himself into this position. That's all it is. And he's able to reveal that, oh, I should never have turned down one of those other promotions. And she's like, sorry, what? And he's like, oh yeah, for, you know, that time I, you know, kind of saved the Robidoux from the jellyfish. And, you know, Tendy says, I'm going to stop you there. Billups, can he have a promotion for that time he took the hull off the Cerritos? And Billups like, oh yeah, there you go. That's still part of that down. Now from poor old Livik's point of view. Did Livik know that he was in the middle of a pissing contest with Rutherford? I don't know. But yeah, so like, talk about Billups playing your favourites. But it does leave us with Lieutenant Junior Grade Rutherford at the end of the episode. So yeah, that was an up for Tendy and Rutherford. I'm actually quite happy about that, I'm not gonna lie. Back over on the station, Ransom comes up with a great idea of asking Mariner to punch him. And she kind of does it gently, and he's like, Beckett, come on. And she socks him, at which a tooth falls out. And he goes, this thing likes bones, we're gonna give it bones. And with the removal of every tooth from Ransom's head, they're able to use a trail to get the Moopsie back into its cage. And it's ingenious. And they're fine, and they fix the station, they stabilize it, is what the subtitles tell me. And, you know, then we're like, oh, great. And suddenly they realize that, hang on, why is that section of the humans' tank upside down? And it kind of triggers, and then the Moopsie's cage opens again, because the bloody humans were the ones who let it out, because they heard how profitable they were going to be, and they were going to take over the station. Humans and money. I mean, like, whatever century you're in, they just leave them in that jail. And they do say it's until somebody else can deal with them, but yeah, I think that's fair. Screw you guys. And some lovely cameos then from some other alien races in that menagerie at the end. Closing scene of the episode sees you have a lovely moment between Mariner and Ransom, and I really like their relationship there. And you have a lovely bunking up together of Boimler and Rutherford. Rutherford, who of course had a clear head on, so like, oh, you can see the nacelle. I'm just going to turn down the viewports. Boimler, how did you even become an officer to begin with? With all that said, will you take a walk with me to Cetacean Observations? Lower Decks once again coming out swinging. Right, we have the prototype anti-probert warbird from Star Trek The Next Generation. This was the vertical one that we were going to see before they went horizontal. The TNG style Romulans, we have, well, parts of a Riemann, and of course Riemann juice, which just never comes out. And we have the TNG Romulan sets with those balls and everything, but we do have the Nemesis style Romulan logo. We have the TNG Romulan captain's chair is floating through space after the warbird is destroyed. Shax and Ransom are, of course, playing the parts of Crusher and Troy from their stretching session in the corridor. We have the Anbujitsu gear, which is just sitting behind them in this bay. They talk about getting hot fudge sundaes after their workout as well. Now, while Boimler is moving, we see in his box of stuff what looks to be the edge of either the Tom Paris plate, or we see later on that there's a Cerritos plate as well. Now, we know that he has two, so I'm going to say it's both of them. His Captain Picard Day banner. I like to think that there was a reference to us in there when Tendi says, "Ooh, remember when we used to rank captains by cuteness?" Chris, keep that in mind. We're going to do that list soon. We have Boimler's headpiece from Batleths and Binocs. We have photo of the dog that Tendi built. The Yosemite 2, which is replacing the Yosemite that was previously destroyed. Talking about a menage, of course, the menagerie from the original series. Boimler's got an action figure of Mirror Universe Archer, because of course he does. There is a Seti eel in the menagerie. Okay, we're going to give it a go. There's a Seti eel. There's a koala. There's a sky snake that was first mentioned on the planet of the Areolus with Peanut Hamper there last season. We have an Aldebaran serpent, which is what Q appeared as. A Hakonian land eel. I don't even know how they managed to capture that, but that's going around the edge of the menagerie. Boimler uses his Medusan visor at one point. The humans who are stuck in the cage are wearing the exact same outfits as the genetically engineered children that were introduced in the Pulaski-centric episode Unnatural Selection. Naj says that his Pythian swamp gobblers are his real moneymaker. So there's a couple of options here. In Enterprise, Phlox had a Pythian bat as a pet, and the Pythian hawk was its only predator. But there's also the Gorge of Pythia on Talax, which was mentioned by Neelix as well. And at this stage in Star Trek's history, quite frankly, it could be either. We have the Tucker tubes. You take an up right now. Those tubes have been in like every iteration of Star Trek. And I just love it. Like, taking up for the Tucker tubes and taking up for the fact that they add an extra one, call it the Billups tubes. They talk about the Heisenberg collapse. And the fact that Billups says, I don't even know what we use these for. Take another up. T'Ana is dressed as Robin Hood, and she seems to hand a red pair of pants to Shax, so he may possibly be playing the role of Will Scarlet. We have the Archer and Spock dolls are then sitting on display in Boimler's quarters, along with his Ad Astra poster, which is rolled up and in the box. We have a painting that was done by Data in The Next Generation sitting on the wall. Ransom stabbed Mariner in the foot. This is from early days Lower Decks, and then turned into a giant head. Of course, we all remember that. And tried to sabotage Mariner on the orbital lift as well. In Boimler's Jeffries Tube's quarters, he has what looks to be an action figure of could be Data holding a phaser rifle. I say Data because it's a first contact style uniform with a yellow undershirt and what seems to be a kind of a blank white face. We get a reference to Rutherford turning down promotions, and we get a couple of references to previous things that have happened in Lower Decks. In the menagerie at the very end, as visitors, there are two Antedians, which we remember from the episode Manhunt. There are also members of the Feeders of Val, or the alien race that were from the episode The Apple. They would be distinctive for their kind of like reddish brown skin. Funny story, featuring guest star David Soul in that original episode. At the end, T'Ana says that she has to go and hurt the Sheriffs of Nottingham. We see Rutherford's model of the DS9 station, and by the end he's playing with something that could be either Wesley's repulsor beam from The Naked Now or Data's horseless carriage from Time's Arrow. Folks, that is everything for our list this week. What did you think? We got 2 episodes for the price of 1. Did you enjoy? Do you think they should have held off? What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget, you can let us know over on Twitter as well, at TrekCulture. We're on Instagram at TrekCultureYT. I'm at Sean Ferrick on Twitter. And of course, you can catch Chris at ChrisEdit on both Twitter and Instagram as well. Folks, until I see you again, thank you very much for following along. Don't forget that we've got our podcast, which drops every single Tuesday on all of the podcast catchers of your choice. So make sure that you watch that and make sure that you're subscribed. You are awesome. You are wonderful. If you want to know anything, hashtag #AskTrekCulture on the various socials, and we will do our best to read out your question on the pod. Live long and prosper until I see you again. Our friends in Ukraine, Slav Ukrainia. Everyone, until I see you again, have a wonderful time. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. Make it so.